our program today. And David, I hope you don't mind me letting you go first, because in this pecking order of slides, I put your slides first. That's okay. David Olsen and James Wilson are going to talk today. And I think this is great that we can all really hear a little bit of the details of our two important club foundations. Can't call one club. There's a Rotary Foundation and a club foundation. So David, go ahead.
So thank you very much. November is Foundation Month. And so we have a foundation talk. And this talk will be shared between myself and for the International Foundation. And then James Wilson will talk about the Oak Ridge Breakfast Club Foundation. And they're sort of two separate entities. So I'll talk about the International Foundation, and that is sort of run for our club by committee. This is a list of the people on our committee, and we have a very good and experienced committee. And this is a little timeline here of the history of Rotary and the Rotary Foundation. Rotary was started in 1905 in Chicago, I believe. In 1917, they gave their first grant. Then the first foundation, I think, is 1947, in which the foundation was organized. And then in 1979, if most of us will remember, that was during the polio epidemic was ending. And then we started Polio Plus. And then since then, it's got more and more complicated. Next slide. Okay, so we have several new members, and they're going to find that these two foundations are confusing. So I made this little slide to explain how this works. And some of our members, older members, even don't understand this. So we have two foundations to fund. We are lucky because we can fund two foundations. The Rotary International Foundation is the 501c charity for Rotary International. Okay, that's its basic function. And it contains SHARE, which is the fund that we get from global and district to fund global and district grants. And every dollar that goes into SHARE, 50% goes into global grants and 50% goes into district grants. And of course, it also includes Polio Plus. So it has its own international board. Each club has its own committee to raise contributions and encourage grant applications. So that's part of our job, is to understand where we are with grant applications. My experience with the foundation is that it's very bureaucratic and very slow. And the basic way this works is the members contribute to the International Foundation, and then we get money back through applying for grants, and we compete with the other Rotary clubs in our district, in the world, in the United States to get the money back. Okay. There is no free lunch from the Rotary International Foundation. The Oak Ridge Breakfast Rotary Club Foundation is the 501c charity for our club. And this mostly funds local projects and events. It has its own independent board, and its chairman this year is James Wilson, and it's very flexible and fast. So James can call a meeting, and in 10 minutes, they can make a decision and do something. International Foundation takes a few months. The next slide shows our International Foundation goals for this Rotary year. And so Tony has to come up with a list of goals, and these are published, and then we try and meet these goals. And these are our goals for this year. Our share goal is $10,000, and as far as I can figure out, we're at $9,673, but I can't guarantee that because it's really hard to unpack what some of these numbers mean you get from the foundation. It's just not obvious. Our Polio Plus goal is $4,000. We're at $930, and I'm positive none of this is of our donuts money that was done mostly by Brenda Thornburg, which we thank, is at least another $1,000, and that is sort of not into the bookkeeping yet. And then new projects is a question mark because we need some new projects to get some funds back. And that is done by members of our club. We want money from the foundation. We have to write grants. That's how it works. Okay, the next slide. Okay. So for the new people, you get Paul Harris points. And everybody's goal is to get a lot of Paul Harris points. And you get a point for every dollar you give. It's sort of like frequent flyers. Except in the end, all you get is these beautiful badges, beautiful pins. And you get points by giving to the Share Fund of Rotary International, Polio Plus, or the contributions of our local club for our share to get grants. So if we have a grant for this or that, then we have to come up matching money, and that matching money the people get points for. And then you get Paul Harris pins depending upon how much you give. And the one there on the right here is when you give $1,000. This one here is when you give $6,000. And as you give more and more money, you get a more and more beautiful pin. That pin there has 5 blue pieces of glass. And that pin costs, you have to contribute $6,000 to get. Ways to give. First, the dues statement, I think, still allows you to give contributions when you pay your dues. You can give checks to Joe McGrory, or give them to him personally, or mail them, and he lives at 501 Connor Circle here in Oak Ridge. Credit cards, you have to talk to Robert Weir about that. Or you can directly give to the foundation with this contribution form here. And that is the simplest way to do this because it goes through nobody's hands. It goes directly to Rotary, and in a couple of days, it's put in our account. And to get that form, you just Google the Rotary Foundation contribution form, and then you can print it out and fill it out, and you can pay with check and tell them where you want the money to go, etc. That is straightforward. Pardon?
How do you get the form? David, please repeat the question.
How do you get the form? You Google, and you can Google Rotary Foundation contribution form, and then websites will pop up where you can print this out. I need to back up a few slides. I forgot something. Now, in addition to the money, we have specific goals. And we need one, so these are the goals Tony has given for us. So we need one major donor. That's a new cumulative combination donation of $10,000. And I think that's doable because we have several people with $6,000 or $7,000 contributions cumulative. So we can probably do that. Then we need one benefactor. That's to donate $1,000 to the endowment fund. And the interest on the endowment fund funds the programs that involve people, exchange people, this and that. That's where that money comes from. And then we have one bequest society member, and that's a commitment of $10,000 or more through your estate. So, and then our committee goal is to have every member contribute something this year to the foundation. And we'll get on that after the holidays. But after the holidays, if you have not given a contribution of something to the Rotary Foundation, you will hear from somebody from our committee. We'll come and talk to you about this. How am I doing on time?
You're okay, David.
Okay.
You got about 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll end this up. Can we go forward again? Okay, so the bequest society form is given here. Rotary has a form for everything. So if you Google request society form, you can get this form. And this is to give money to Rotary when you are no longer here as part of your estate. And you fill out this form and what you have to do is just tell them. That's all you have to do. If you give a lot of money or want to do something complicated, then you need to start talking to the lawyers. But if you want to do something simple, all you have to do is fill out this form and mail it in, and they will take your word that you have done this. And you can leave $10,000 as part of your IRA account, a checking account. You could designate a CD for this. The simplest way to do that is simply to make a new account, like a new IRA account, put $10,000 in and mail in the form. That is according to James Wilson, who was a banker and understands all this. The last slide shows our global and district grants we have received the last 6 years. And this is as far as people are shaking their heads, so there's a lot of errors here. This is the best I could do. And we have really done very well with this. We have had 3 global grants, and this is the total of the grant, what our club has come up with, or what it also includes contributions from other local clubs. If it's a district grant, this is the match, and if it's a global grant, it's this match plus this match. So if you look at the global grants, in the last 6 years, we have received $128,000 in matching money. So we have done pretty well there. And then the district grants, and I think I'm missing some, they have some to about $20,000. And here are some of the things that I know about that people are talking about for future grants. But we surely need to do some work to come up with some grants, either district or global grants for this year. So with that, I'll give it to James.
get this. Highlight stuff. No, this is different. If you want to highlight something instead of walking through the. Okay, good.
Well, good morning, everybody. I want to let you know that originally Peyton and Eli Manning were supposed to come and co-chair this meeting, but they canceled late. So you're stuck with David Olsen and me. That's part of the five-way test of having fun. Now, if you'll notice the screen behind me, this is just the latest example of work performed by the ORBRC Rotary Club Foundation. And our work was consolidating your individual gifts into a fund, holding the money and distributing that to pay for the dictionaries that were purchased and distributed last week. That's kind of what we do. Next slide, please. The foundation started work in 2012, thanks to Doug Schultz and Fred Berry and others. It's a legal entity separate and apart from the club. It's a Tennessee corporation. It has a 501c3 classification. It has its own fiscal year, which is calendar year, and that's different from the club. And it's organized for purposes of facilitating the charitable giving of the club for its projects and goals and aspirations during each and every year. And we do that by management of the club with a 7-member board of directors. The only qualifications for the board to be on the board is that you're a member in good standing of the club. 6 of those 7 members are regular members of the board, and they serve 3 years at a time. And the board terms are staggered so that every year, 2 of the oldest board members go off the board and 2 new ones come in, so that keeps fresh people and new ideas on the board. The 7th member is the immediate past president of the club, and this year is Sherry, and in January it will be Rudy Miller. And thank you, Sherry, for your service this year. Now you see that we have 4 officers. I'm the president this year. Charles Crow is the vice president. Sherry is the secretary. Joe McGrory, our heavy hitter, is the treasurer. And while it's listed in that way, and Joe's listed last, Joe does a lot of the work, and we appreciate, Joe, what you do. If we were in baseball season, which we are, and we were playing baseball, Joe bats 4th in our lineup, and he is the cleanup hitter. He signs every check for every distribution of funds that goes out of the foundation. He knows more about it than anybody else. Does a wonderful job. All the people in Oak Ridge who receive our money want to collect his autograph, not ours, because it's autographed, it's on our check. Now the next, so how do we work? Well, you can leave that up. The foundation receives gifts from you. So at one time I thought about having you get your phones out and put them on selfie mode and have you look in the phone and tell you, our foundation, you're looking at it, because it's us collectively. And what the foundation does is receive money and donations from you. And the donations in the past have come from funding sources that are identified on the screen. 1/2 of the Joker draw, which we had a Joker draw this morning, and our old pre-COVID fundraising activities like auctions and bake sales and wine swaps and dinners and those kinds of things. And since COVID came around, well, the group fundraising, large group fundraising activities are gone. The Joker draw was eliminated when we were only meeting virtually to start with. And I think this is the largest number of people that might have showed up live at a meeting post-COVID or in the middle of COVID. So we haven't been getting hardly any money on the Joker draw, and we're left with looking at individual contributions without a formal fundraising, which is what we've been doing for about the last 18 months. And you can see in the long run that that's worked out really well. Now, our goal for the foundation and our goal for the club is that each member, all members, contribute something, large or small, to the foundation. And we would take those funds and use them for charitable purposes approved by the club and the foundation. Next slide. There are two forms of gifts that we get from you. We get designated gifts and we get undesignated gifts. If you give us a designated gift, for example, a check to the foundation and memo line says for career pathways, then we, as your fiduciary, will take that check, deposit it, put it into subcategory of funds dedicated to career pathways. And thank you, Jim Palmer, for doing career pathways. And then that fund will benefit from that individual contribution. All the other funds are undesignated funds, and the undesignated funds go into what we call our general account, and that's the account from which we manage as a foundation for charitable purposes during the year. The primary function of our foundation with that general fund is the Community Action Grant Program. You see below the first line over here, the other designated funds that we might have. So just a representation of it because there's others. And new ones will come on and drop off, like the Humphreys County Flood Relief popped up this year and is funded and gone. And the India COVID-19 Relief Fund is I think concluded and money's been paid out. For our community action grants, that's our big thing. The history on that is it started in 2013 for the first time. And what we do is we solicit application for grant money from local charities in the area. We review those applications. We do that, and by creating in the foundation a community action grant committee. This year's committee was co-chaired by Jim Michael and Charles Crow and myself. And in addition to that, we had a fundraising committee composed of Sherry and Emily. And we didn't put Joe on a particular committee because he's going to do all the work anyway. And we tried to take as much load off of him as we could. And finally, Jim Rushton, who was the chair, our president last year, was our cleanup hitter. Our sixth man, different sport. And he did most of the work last year, and we let him help us out this year, and it was wonderful. Nobody ever said no to anything. So to evaluate our community action grant program applicants, we had a grant selection committee composed of all of the directors of the foundation and 2 additional members of the club. And those additional members were John Gowinka and Brenda Thornburg. And thank you, Brenda and John, for doing that. We had to review about 30 applications. First, to make sure they're in the right form. And second, the committee had to look at every one of them to rank those applications in the order of the most pressing and appropriate, and then decide how much money to give them. So we had that meeting to do all of that. Probably 5 times the amount of time spent on that meeting was spent by each individual member looking at those applications for grants. Brenda Thornburg came in, she had printed out them all. I bet there's a stack of paper that high, and she must have had somebody help her carry it in, but she read every word and was a great member of the committee. And you can be pleased that a lot of work was put into looking at the grants. As a result of that meeting, then 24 of our local charitable entities in our community were funded, and this is the list. So you should be proud of that. You should know most of them, if not all of them. And so these are the people that would get the money. And let's go back a minute and realize that when we were in May of this year doing this work and getting ready to pay out money, we had to raise the money. And we had to start in the fall, the last quarter of 2020, right in the middle of COVID, where we couldn't, as I said before, could not have our normal fundraising activities. And so, our fundraising was direct communications with the members, and we tried to do that in a polite and courteous way, being politely persistent in my terminology about seeking money to sell out this year because of COVID. We thought COVID would be at its peak and the pain caused by COVID would be at its peak this spring. So everybody sold out. I was so impressed. Without a formal fundraising, we raised a lot of money. The foundation sold out by cleaning out the closets and putting all the money we could into the general account for purposes of funding the community action grants, and left just enough to cover what we thought we could see coming. And then you guys sold that. And we raised $55,000. And I tried to find my billfold, figured out to put this check in. This is a record, of course. And if you would, put the next slide up. So this is what we've done. This is the last thing that we've done for our community action grant program. And I wish I could put that up and see it. I'd like to review the history of the grant program, and you see that it started in 2013, and there's a hiatus in 14. But look at the graph, and then if you look at the number of dollars, which is the blue colored bars on the graph, and you see that every consecutive year increases all the time, every time, no exceptions. That says a lot about the foundation, but since the foundation is you, that says a lot about you, because it's just the accumulation of the individual contributions that you make in undesignated funds to the foundation. And you see the number of entities that were benefited by that. So here we have, and I'm going to scare Charles, but here we have our $55,000 record, and we are now getting ready to do it again. Because here we are in the last quarter of 2021. We're looking to do something in 2022. What are our goals going to be? Well, when we started this goal, we decided, since we thought the pain would be the most this spring, that we would have a lofty goal. And setting high goals is a good thing. Because if you don't have a goal, like the old country song says, if you don't know where you're going, any old road will take you there. So we set a high goal, and we really didn't put an upper limit on it, except to beat last year's number, really. And I would commend for your reading in setting goals like this, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And I still have that in my attic. And there's a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by Frank Bettinger, decades old, still have that in my attic. So you want to think big because there's no reason to think small, ever. And sometimes you meet those lofty goals. And we met it this time for this spring, and we can do it again. So I would challenge us to do better than this year, next year. We can do it. It's capable of being done. We need a little hard work to get it done. And let's do it again. At the top of this graph, you see that the amount of dollars that have been contributed to charities in our local area by the Community Action Grant Program, over $170,000. And about a third of that was this year. So we're very generous. Our club and its members are very generous, thinking of others, trying to make the world a better place and make our community a better place. And I congratulate you all. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. Next slide. This is kind of a snapshot of where we are today. And if you look at the bottom portion of the slide, this is the amount of money that has been received by the foundation in the first 9 months of this year. You kind of forget about all the little details about how we paid that money last year. This is just this year, in just 9 months, $57,000 in round numbers have been received. And I want you to know that the expenses associated with the operation of the foundation are in my opinion, much less than 1% of that number. And one of the reasons why is the club is paying our accounting fees to Robert Weir for accounting services to the club. It's about $2,500, I think. And the club does that so that your contributions to the foundation go straight to the charity. And then we take as little as we can out of it. So essentially all your dollars go to the charity. And it's almost like writing that check to those people yourself, except that we vetted them and ranked them and decided how much of your money should be spent there. And I feel really good about that. Now, the top part of the slide shows the balance of all funds. That includes the designated funds, about $27,000. And you see the designated fund balance that leaves $13,000 in our general fund. And that's the basis from which we will start raising money, or we are raising money for next year's Community Action Grants Program and other unknown charitable activities of the club and the foundation. Okay, next paragraph or next slide. We're not a one and done business. This is next year's slate. These people are going to drive the ship next year. Charles Crow has consented to be president. He'll do a great job. Jim Michael will be vice president, and we kind of twisted his arm, and he might be the president next year, subject to a later decision. Sherry is going to be secretary, and Joe McGrory will continue as treasurer. So there'll be a lot of continuity in the work of the foundation, and you should notice nothing or no change, or probably a better result next year than this year. Jim Rushton and I are the two people that are leaving at the end of our terms. We've had two consecutive 3-year terms. And Dick Davis is going to replace Jim, and Sherry's going to replace me. So they're going to be full-time members of the board. On January the 1st, Rudy Miller will be the 7th director and serve for 1 year. Now these, so I'm kind of, it's not necessarily a swan song, but I'm not delivering the gavel for December 31. But you can feel comfortable that we're in good shape. All of our present obligations that are current to be paid have been paid. Those numbers that you saw in the previous slide are real numbers and reflect no claim on them at this time. So that's the status of the foundation. Now, since Eli and Peyton didn't show up and finish this meeting, I'm going to take questions. I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to really thank you for your contributions to the foundation this year.
I think we ought to all stand up for that. So let's have maybe 1 or 2 questions for now, and maybe they'll be here after. But if you have a question, please repeat it so that.
I just want to correct one of the decisions. Robert Weir's fee is not $2,500.
Well, okay. I was guessing. Whatever it is, it's paid. Whatever it is, it's paid.
Not $1,000 plus $500 for the lawyers.
Okay. It's whatever it is, but it's no expense to the foundation, which is real important. Questions, anybody?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, it's not a question, but just on the internet, I've had some experience negotiating with them. I'm not going to go down right time, but leaving it, get them to go. They have a lot of rules, but they're really get into it. They're reasonable. So if anybody wants to help, help through that, maybe I'm happy to help.
Great. Okay. And I would say one other thing. We're raising money for the rest of the year. It's only November. And you have 2 years to consider how much money you would like to give, if you wish to give, to the foundation and get your gift written off this year. So think about that. Yes.
I just want to say, if you are interested in making donations to the Rotary Grant Foundation, the easiest way is just to go to Rotary Grant, sign in, and then you can just make a donation directly.
I'm not sure if you could hear that, but Emily said you can go directly to the Rotary Foundation on the internet and sign in and get those forms and make those contributions right there.
Thank you again. I want to clarify one thing that Joe McRory asked me to clarify. Okay, and that is when you put money in the little hopper here for rooster dollars and things, and you put money in, it goes to some of the operating expenses for the club, if you put dollars in. If you write a check to the foundation, it doesn't go to that, it goes to the foundation. Okay, that's how Joe does it. But if you just write a general check, like for your birthday and things, and you just put ORBRC, it goes to the rooster designated funds, okay? It's a little confusing, but that's the way it goes. I just, so it's like November. There's a lot of reasons to bring your checkbook to every meeting, like in November and December. Like one of the reasons is Tammy. One of the reasons is what these amazing people are doing. So, you know, consider bringing your checkbook to some of the meetings, maybe all of the meetings in November and December. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say what I said, since I ran out of time. You know, if you have these three consecutive circles, circles that are
Stand closer.
circles that are the scope of action for the national or the international Rotary Club, and the focus for our club. There's a little interaction down here. And then if you add the foundation as another circle, there's still a little pie down here. I call that the pie. And it's our job to grow the pie. And my mother told me the first two words I ever said as an infant was more pie. So what we need is more pie from you and from us. And we'll do all we can to maximize those benefits that you give us to work with. Thank you.
And I would just like to reiterate that we are in need of applications for grants, and we need to work on this.
That's enough.